What's up, y'all? And of course, welcome to another alternative factuals video. Yeah, so today we're going to be covering the DC Universe version of the all-black Justice League. Now, obviously, this is going to be in conjunction with my homeboy Ernie's video about the Justice League when it comes to his picks. And to be honest, there's not a lot of black superheroes in DC Comics compared to Marvel Comics, Image Comics, and stuff like that. So some of this is going to seem very similar for the most part, obviously, but at the same time, I'm definitely going to try and give you a little bit of variety and kind of introduce some people or reintroduce some people you may or may not have known about when it comes to DC Comics. But before I dive into any of those topic and subject matters, please be sure to like, share, and of course subscribe. Leave your comments down below. Let me know what you're thinking. Let me know what you're feeling. And without further and or possible ado, let's kind of just dive into this. Okay, so basically I'm going to make my own Black Justice League just like I did for my all black Avengers team. I will try and include 7 people. Also, one thing, I'm going to set some ground rules. I didn't make this clear in the last video, and that's completely my fault. Remember, this is my personal preference of a team. Does not mean any other team member or superhero in the DC universe is not worthy to be on this team. This is just simply my pick for the team. And also, I know Ernie did not include basically the Dakotaverse superheroes like Icon or Static Shock, but you know, characters who are I guess enveloped in that universe that kind of got rolled into DC will be included. Now, the only reason I have to specify that is because apparently there was a lawsuit in December of 2019 that they were settled between DC Comics as well as Dwayne McDuffie's wife. I'm not going to get into details of that. You can Google that, see all that information online, but ultimately we don't know if it's going to be a part of DC Comics anymore, and I can't really in good conscience do this video and not let you guys know that. But as long as we understand the ground rules and basically what you're coming into, then we can kind of move forward with this. Okay, so off the rip, I'm going to tell you that basically I'm gonna just say this off the rip. Black Lightning is my #1 go-to. Now, I'm not gonna go too deep in his powers, but obviously he's a generator and he can manipulate the electromagnetic spectrum. Of course he can, and he himself can turn into energy. Also, he is a highly intelligent person, masterful tactician, and he has skilled hand-to-hand combat skills because he himself was trained by Batman. So he's no joke, and of course he is very much able to lead a team because he does it on multiple occasions. And believe it or not, Black Lightning is one of Batman's go-to people when he needs things to get done behind the scenes without the whole Justice League name being attached to it specifically. So Black Lightning is definitely more than capable of the team. He definitely can lead the team if he really wanted to, and I think that's something a lot of people need to take in consideration, especially when it comes to his character. And yeah, I'm going to leave it just at that. Now, #2. Now, this may seem like a character that a lot of people don't really know too much about, and the reason I say this is because you may have seen the Superman versus the Elite movie, but these are actually real characters. Now, on this person, I'm going to add Nathan Craig Jones, who's better known as Coldcast. Now, for those of you who don't know, he was a part of a, kind of vigilante group, or, basically he was with Manchester Black initially with the Elite, and eventually he converted and joined the Justice League Elite, meaning he converted to a good guy. But Coldcast has a very interesting set of abilities. It's similar to Black Lightning, but not quite necessarily to the same extent. And what makes him interesting is his powers does include electromagnetism. Basically, he's like static in a lot of ways, but basically his powers seem to be allowing him to manipulate particles on a subatomic level. So his powers, like I said, it varies based on how his powers choose to manifest, but ultimately it is very much similar to Black Lightning. He will be a support character to Black Lightning in a lot of ways because their powers can feed off of each other. But he can levitate, make electromagnetic fields, he can make force bolts, electromagnetic pulses, and he may not be as skilled of a fighter compared to Black Lightning, but ultimately he is a street fighter. Now, you need someone who isn't as powerful as, let's say, Black Lightning, simply because they're all going to be villains who you don't necessarily need that much power for. But also, he is someone who's good on the street level, someone who keeps the team relatively, leveled. Even though Black Lightning is good for doing that on his own, sometimes there are big enough issues that sometimes the team can forget about the little person and the places that they came from. So that's something else we need to pay attention to. Okay, so #3 is going to be Vixen. Now, this was included also in Ernie's list. This is something we both can agree on. Vixen is she's definitely a support character, but because of her powers and because she's able to tap into the red, which is basically an aspect of this mystical field that gives access to different various forms of animals, she can actually be a very powerful hitter. And she mostly, the reason I say she's mostly support cast, because usually the powers we see her take on is usually in conjunction to help someone else when it comes to their powers, especially because you're dealing with someone who is like Black Lightning, who himself is a powerhouse by himself, and most people are afraid of him alone. And also I'm including Coldcast, who can actually help augment and further kind of complement Black Lightning's powers. But also the fact of the matter is she can literally turn into any animal that she wants to physically or manifest their abilities. Now there has been instances in which she's kind of manipulated the red enough to the point she was able to absorb and develop these powers very similar to Superman, just due to the nature of the amulet, which allows her to tap into the red, because obviously Superman is a person and an animal. Like, we technically are animals, we are mammals. Obviously Superman is an alien, but she can tap into the red, and it doesn't even just limit to the planet Earth. She can tap into the red on any planet in the solar system or any planet in the galaxy. As long as there's animals, she can tap into the red and absorb and use their abilities. So that's something that a lot of people need to keep in mind when it comes to her powers. Now, of course, you have to have a Green Lantern, and then who better than John Stewart? John Stewart, for a lot of people, including myself, was basically the Green Lantern that a lot of people grew up with, not just in the comic books, but also in the Justice League TV show. He was an amazing Green Lantern. Obviously, he had a lot of character development in the show in general when it came to the first 2 seasons of the original Justice League show. And a lot of people got attached to him because he brought this kind of cool side of the pillow kind of vibe to the show in general. And also in the comic books, he was very calm, collected, but tactical, precise, and dependable, which is very hard to find, especially in the DC universe when it comes to superheroes in general, because, you know, superheroes are not very reliable in DC Comics as well as in Marvel Comics. So he's someone you can definitely depend on, someone who's very truthful, honest, and someone who believes in actually, you know, pursuing justice in whatever form it may be. He has all the capabilities of Hal Jordan. If anything, I see him as an equal, because even though Hal Jordan has gotten some plot boosts over the last few years, ultimately John Stewart is the second in command. He's the one who has the most knowledge. He was the one who actually was introduced right behind some of the mainstays of comic books when it comes to the Green Lantern Corps in the first place. And his manipulation of the willpower, of his willpower when it comes to his ring and what he's capable of when it comes to the Green Lantern Corps is just really powerful. And he's someone that you always want on your team, because at the end of the day, no matter how much he may disagree with your perspective or your point of view, if you're on the same team, he is going to hold you down. And that's just an absolute fact. You don't have to question whether or not he's going to have your back, because you already know he does. All right, so number 4. Basically, I'm going to actually include Cyborg in this. And the reason why I include Cyborg is, yes, I know some people give Cyborg slack. He hasn't had a good comic in forever. Also, he has pretty much been promoted or demoted or whatever you want to call it to an over-glorified security guard. The last time we saw anything interesting about Cyborg was the Teen Titans TV show, and probably Young Justice, you know, more or less having to do with character development. He wasn't the most powerful in most of his comic book iterations, but when it came to not live action TV shows, but animated TV shows, some shows made him a little stronger than, I guess, how they portray him in the comic books. But ultimately, he is someone you want on your team, and the reason why that is because he can retrieve information when it comes to the digital web. There are a lot of things that are going on nowadays. It's 2020, and DC Comics takes place relatively in the modern era, so there's a lot of Wi-Fi, a lot of information, a lot of digital stuff that he will be able to access because he's able to communicate with technology. He's able to kind of finesse his way with technology. He's able to become one with technology, which allows him to be very useful for the team in reconnaissance when it comes to digital, I guess, information kind of being accessed to him. He's also able to kind of forensically dissect machinery and able to figure out what happened to the machine, how it was destroyed, and retrieve basically unrecoverable data, which can be very useful. All right, number 5. I'm actually going to put Icon on this list. Now, like I said, do not presume that they are still a part of the DC universe. We don't know officially if they are yet, even though they came to a settlement in December of 2019. We do not know the outcome of that settlement, but ultimately, I'm going to put him on this list. Now, Icon was initially created to be more powerful than Superman, and they did fight, and Superman did admit at one point Icon is far more powerful. Icon is also far more older than Superman, meaning he has a lot more finesse with his abilities. he is someone who also to some degree probably could take Black Lightning's place when it comes to leading a team. But some people will argue like, okay, yes, he's an alien and technically he's not black because he is an alien. Now the only reason I'm including him in this list is because if you look at the origins of Icon when he came to Earth, not only did he come to Earth, but he chose to be a black man. He chose to go through the struggle. He arrived in the United States during the time of slavery, meaning at one point or another, despite his superpowers, he still decided to become one of the most oppressed group of people on the planet Earth. And then he stayed that way all the way until present day. He chose to get beat despite the fact that he had powers to literally wipe out all of his slavers, but he didn't do it. He chose to sit there and support people he was, pretending to be in a lot of ways. So he may have not been like, I guess technically born black. Genetically, he altered himself to be, a black person, an African American. But ultimately, he chose to be that and he stayed that way. He never looked back. And that's, in my book, I think that's pretty dope. And if y'all don't give it a pass, I'll give it a pass. But his powers do include very much super strength, super speed, enhanced durability, and enhance just perception of time. I guess is a very weird, awkward ability. His perception of time is very different, but also he's able to manipulate various forms of energy, not necessarily cosmic energy, because obviously Marvel has more of a cosmic thing going on than DC Comics does, but he's able to manipulate various forms of energy, which makes him far more powerful than Superman, as well as he's pretty much just stronger, and his regeneration is pretty much on par, if not greater than Superman's, but also he is older, meaning he has longevity. So something to think about. But number 6, for this one, I'm going to include a speedster, and I'm going to just say I'm going to put the New 52 Wally West on here. Now the only reason I'm going to put the New 52 Wally West is, besides the fact that in general I do like speedsters, I've begun to hate the Speed Force, because in a lot of ways it's a very poorly used plot device in a lot of situations, and it seems like a lot of writers don't really know what to do with it. At the end of the day, it can be a very useful skill, especially when you're dealing with a very intelligent team. Now there are some villains who know how to combat the Speed Force. Obviously they can combat it using the Still Force if they wanted to, if that's really an option for them, or ultimately Captain Cold can slow down his molecules so that way he can't run as fast. But ultimately, if you have genius level intellects like Icon or like Black Lightning, or people who are tacticians like John Stewart, ultimately they will realize that being able to use the Speed Force to their ability and use it in such a way that is very precise and precision accurate, that having a speedster can actually solve a lot of problems if used correctly. Now, Wally West is not a heavy hitter by himself. He doesn't have super strength. His super speed does allow him to hit really hard, but he needs momentum to do it. And because of the Speed Force, it allows him to absorb information a lot more quickly, it allows him to think a lot more quickly. It does allow him to do things a lot more quickly and enhance his physical attributes. However, if you use this in conjunction with several other people on the team, like Black Lightning, for example, who can more than likely absorb some of the Speed Force energy, because it is a form of energy at the end of the day, he can augment himself. Even Icon to some degree, because he can manipulate energy, that might be an option for him. At the same time, maybe they can augment the Wally West, make him faster, or maybe make his powers a little bit more easily accessible to him, like allowing the Speed Force to kind of flow through him a little easier because of his abilities and because of the other team members and what they're capable of, and because of his powers. These are people who literally can just keep feeding off of each other, and then eventually they might actually develop a way for them to augment themselves, even if it's for a temporary moment in time, with the Speed Force or vice versa. So I'm just saying this is a hypothetical scenario, but ultimately Wally West can be used very well if someone knows how to use them, and Black Lightning is more than capable of figuring that out, as well as Icon, as well as the other characters that are going to be on the team. Now my final pick for this team will be Steel. Now Steel is pretty much the DC's version of Iron Man. For those of you who don't know who Steel is basically John Henry Irons. He is someone who is highly intelligent. He took on the mantle of Superman when Superman actually went missing at one point. Obviously, he was not trying to pass as Superman per se, but he had this Superman-esque kind of S on his chest that represented steel. But ultimately, he's a genius level intellect when it comes to engineering. He does have hand-to-hand training when it comes to combat, and he does have special training when it comes to being a tactician. Now, of course, because he's a genius level intellect when it comes to engineering, imagine Tony Stark, who was able to build the god-killing armor with celestial armor, basically. He was able to create Iron Man armor out of Uru metal, which contained mystical properties, meaning John Henry Irons has the same capabilities as Tony Stark. And having someone on the team like that can be very, very beneficial. One, his experiments or any engineering aspect of his, I guess, adventures, or even some of his, I guess, I wouldn't even call them side quests, but basically his experiments. His experiments already would not have a limitation to the amount of power that the power grid will be able to provide, because you have team members like Coldcast and Black Lightning who can supply him with more power than he needs in order for him to further his research. Two, at the end of the day, when he creates a suit, he can further augment Cyborg, who can communicate with machinery, meaning because they kind of go hand in hand together, because of Cyborg's understanding of machines, as well as, I guess, Steel's understanding of machines and how to build them, they can keep helping each other out and enhancing each other, and thus enhancing the team. Maybe he can make Black Lightning's powers a little bit more efficient with some sort of tool of some sort. I'm just saying hypothetically. Or maybe make a gun or something like that, where if they have to go on a stealth mission where Black Lightning just have to unleash lightning out of his hands, he can do some from like some sort of electric handheld tool, or somehow is able to convert his power into something else. He's able to do everything that Tony Stark is able to do, and that's what makes him one of the most essential people on this team in reality. But let me know what you guys think about this list. This is my personal list, and I know some of it probably wasn't what you were expecting, and obviously I've seen Ernie's list. We collaborate on this, and I do agree about some things on his list, as well as some people I specifically didn't choose but still agree are good for this team. Like I said, I just wanted to give you a little bit of variety, and let me know what you think. Let me know your preferences and teams down below, and if you're new to the channel, please be sure to like, share, and of course subscribe. Leave your comments down below. Let me know what you're thinking. Let me know what you're feeling. Ooh, and I hope to see you later on. Peace out.